Good morning, guys. The rainy season has started. So yeah, the rainy season has started. So it's really dark. Unfortunately, I'm not going to work again in the morning today. You guys will enjoy that view starting next week. I'm enjoying the freedom of actually working from home. Part of the days this week. I'm sure it's serious, really. So today I'm going to be talking about pre-purchase inspection, just so you know whether you do that with me or not, so that you know what exactly is entailed and you would know what to do. Okay, yeah. Let's try to soothe the rain sound here. Good morning, Martha. Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Darius. Good morning, Abby. Good morning, Council Patrick. Good morning, Clay. So yesterday I actually put the new steering rack. You will feel it the time it wasn't really that hard I had to do. Good morning, Salmin. Pre-purchase inspection. Now, Ariwa Editunes, some of the people that were able to buy a car without me would come here and tell us what they did after seeing it on this channel, because I'm totally I'm very sure that there are many people that have actually bought cars without me. What I did, what I tell you normally here, and they do exactly that. So pre-purchase inspection. Now, pre-purchase inspection doesn't just apply to cars. Pre-purchase inspection happens to apply when you're buying land, when you're buying even you're buying a big screen TV for your home, you're buying alumni, yes, for the love of cars, alumni. So whatever the list, there's a time I gave you a list of things you should look at when you're going to do pre-purchase inspection for a car. Now, the list in Uganda kind of is different from the list that you would normally get on Google that Americans or the Europeans do. Why? Because so it's kind of different, and you need to also understand that some of the things that apply in the US or in Europe don't apply here. Why? Because already you need to understand that some of the things that are important to the Europeans or Americans or South Africans, because South Africans drive new cars, right? Don't apply here. Why? Majority of the time I actually have a friend that got a car from the bond and it had 200,000 kilometers. I don't know how he skipped that. Maybe he just didn't care because he was getting a good deal. Also, you have to understand that some mileages are reset. These people have understood that you guys now care about mileage, so what they do is they reset the mileage on the odometer. Kilometer but when the actual mileage is actually 250k. So normally the things you would get on Google would be like ask for a report, history, for a history, service history. If you want to know about service history, because every time, like for example me, like now I have a service tag from Total. The last time I did service, okay, but the one from the other time, service tag Teddy. Also here in Uganda we service cars from different places. Sometimes you service with your mechanic, other times you service from a Shell, then the other times you service from a Total. Kati newe sanga nga you cannot have a consistent service history. You would have a service history if we had organized garages and you'd go to a garage and service from there for like 2 years. Like people that drive new cars and they take them to service at Sifao or Kampala Motors or the Nissan dealer, they can have history because like Toyota Uganda, they would have a catalog, like a document where they write UAM Corolla service yajjanga March 12 tukola service najjanga 12 ogw'omusanvu tukola service. So they'll have a, but for us that go to different petrol stations, so petrol stations don't even care about keeping our information. If you don't know, they don't care. Otherwise would actually be consistent. Like if I went to a Total, me I normally service from Total Acacia Mall. Now if I service from Total Acacia Mall and they kept my information, they'll actually be able to call me and they say, Mr. Arthur, how are you? Well, your service is about to expire. Why don't you come in and be serviced? So you'll realize that they will not be waiting for walk-in service clients. And this is something that can be applied to literally all businesses. Just collect the information of all your customers, and then you'll not be waiting. But service history in Uganda doesn't work because if you start servicing the ideal thing for you to do now, if you buy a car, however good condition it is, go and do service yourself. Good morning, Jerome. Karain lero kaze badde nkamisinga tanka zange I bought 10k naleero ekimotoka ekya 10k wano ne bajja ne bajjuza tanka zange naye era zibadde zitandise okukala because mbadde nyina emirimu gye nkola wano nga gitwala amazzi nnyo nnyo. It's one part of the reason why I'm normally home in the morning these days. So ne bw'onoosaba history report wano Kampala tejja kubaawo kugira ngu oguze emmotoka ya n'eza gavumenti zennyini history report ani agenda ogikuwa okitegeera. A good wish for 15 million. If you don't care about the number plates, there are chances that you will get. But normally I find that the people that want to buy Wish want to buy UBB, UBG and all that. So if you want a UB series, you have to have about 18, 20, 22 million like that. We want it. What you use a filter over plugs in. Then get a box for air cleaner. I went to Total and when I did service, and I told the guy to change the air filter. Yo maso. Bwejamu yangena nengende chali na mtujifuwa mnamugamba nedda. Tutekemu empya. Na ajifuwa mnangana ekitereke. So that's how I kept it. But I think the list depends on which country you are in. Definitely it does. Karaini mukawulirako. Kalaba wano muindi screen katabusi. So the other thing in Uganda, these are the things that you're going to look at. The things that we normally look at. Good morning, Adams. These are the things that we look at. The first thing, the obvious thing that normally you people, the things you look at is how the appearance of the car. You want to make sure that the car doesn't have a lot of filler on it. Because sometimes, if the job was well done, filler is obutamulaba, which take it. So, but you want to make sure that it has not been repaired so many times, which they are the body. U80 USZ is what you call odd number plate Wish. Yes, U80 to USZ is Wish, which take it. But what you on a new number plate, there are chances that you can get a Wish that is good salvage. US series basically, which take it a US series. Someone that has a Wish UBA. And it's really good. 18 million. So that's where the trouble normally comes. And people you normally want to drive UB series when they are buying Toyota Wishes. Yeah, so that's what happens. So you want to make sure that if you're going to buy a car, you want to make sure that it hasn't been repaired so many times. The body, I mean. Look at the bumpers. Buying a bumper is one of the hardest things. Personally, I've had to think about replacing my rear bumper in Uganda because they're selling to me a bumper at 400,000. Let's take it. The rear bumper now. Imagine what will happen with the front bumper. The front bumper, I'm imagining they'll tell me 500 or 550 to get that front bumper. So you don't want to buy a car that has a bumper that is very bad. That is bad. This is just that you don't want to buy a car that has a bad bumper. It's going to cost you money. So you want to make sure the body is not over repaired. You want to make sure the bumpers are actually good. Okay. You also want to make sure that the bonnet you the filler, because that bonnet can make a car look very ugly if it's full of filler because it cracks. You want to make sure that the car does not have a serious accident, because there are accidents that are tolerable. Also, for you guys that have cars, if your car knocks something in the front and the damage is substantial, I would advise that you go and buy a nose guard. There's that thing they call a nose guard. Kamasao, kaja the entire front, kajira ka matara gonna again, kajira ko radiators. You just buy it and come and they place it on your car and then they weld it on. It will make your car look really nice again, and it will not look like it had a very serious accident. What they were repairing is that it will be very hard for someone to actually know that you just repaired, if at all they ever find out. And then that nose cut, since it comes with all the radiators and all, you can simply just replace your SC and all that in I've done that before. I think I had a Caldina. A friend of mine, and I just bought a nose cut. How about fill the same number and on both cars? Which one will you recommend? So no problem, Salmi. Yeah, I think it depends on what you're going to do, but if I were to buy a filter and a wish, I would buy a wish. Definitely. The filter, of course, you're going to get a filter that is 1.5 liter, good fuel consumption. But if you're the kind of business person, I know Salmi, and you're from the farm, buy a wish. It will give you better performance. But then a filter na you in a space so it depends on how much you're going to carry. It also depends on how big your family is. If I'm buying a second car, I would buy a wish, not a filter. Because I want a car that can do more work than the Corolla. So I'll definitely buy a wish and then see when I need to do some heavy lifting, then I take the wish. When I take the Corolla. If I remember right, you once talked about turbo pickup double cabins of Toyota Hilux. Clay, I don't think anyone should be buying a turbo car. You don't need a turbo car. Always try to buy a car that has an ordinary engine, naturally aspirated engines. They are better they're easier to maintain, because every part you add on a car, every part that is added on a car, that's extra expense. Katubaga engine, the engine itself is expensive for that Hilux. Katubaga tako Tabo yokayoko inzo jisanga to replace it is like 1.5. You really don't want to buy a car that has a turbo. When you're buying a Hilux, try to find one that has an ordinary engine, no turbo. So after looking at the body and making sure the body is okay, now there are things sometimes that we let go, like the windscreen having a crack. Now crack. So sometimes we ignore the cracks because that is replaceable, very easily replaceable. You just go to Chengo, they put out that old windscreen, they put a new one at like 200,000 for my car, for example. So sometimes we ignore the windscreen crack because that can be replaced. But very serious accidents, don't ignore the very serious accidents, especially the ones that affected the chassis. Like there are times you can look at a kange jang, now that car might have been involved in a very serious accident that affected the chassis. So you don't want to buy a car where they had a serious accident that affected the chassis. Then you want, when you're buying a car, in Uganda, I discourage people from buying 4-wheel drive cars. Especially if you're buying a small car, like you're buying a Corolla, why are you buying a 4-wheel drive one? It's okay, and normally 4-wheel drive cars have 1.8 liter engines. This is about a 1.5 liter. And from what I've realized, anybody here, mbunga yakutuka center bolt. Salmin ebaya chama buchami. Some of those cars kati yange tena center bolt. Na esengo enfuna accident yamanye esobola okuchamba oba ne bagigola bwetomerera ku kategeza side yemu netomera ng'omuti oba tomera trailer. So normally what happens is that yenyiga mu gweti. Kati when they try to fix it, you don't fix it properly. Never engage mu gweti. You don't buy those cars. Yeah. So you don't need a four-wheel drive car in Uganda. You don't need an all-wheel drive car in Uganda. So when you're buying a car in Uganda, you really want it, I'll discourage you from buying a four-wheel. So normally when you go to buy cars for people, to inspect cars for people, even maintenance is double for that car. Like when you look at the bush, because it's four-wheel drive, so the expense of maintaining the rear is the same as repair. That's why RAV4s are very expensive to repair. Like habu ya bay why ojakwesanga ina maso ne mabege byokoranga bingi nnyo, so it becomes very expensive for you. So avoid four-wheel drive cars in Uganda, especially if you're buying a small car like a Corolla, like a Fielder, like a Wish, like the Alex, the one chikuza four-wheel drive car. I know you're going to be feeling like there's no time you're going to be using a four-wheel. I've never needed to have four-wheel drive. You just need to have good skills on this, the right skill driving. Or safe. So the other thing that you would have to look at, engine. If you're going to buy a car that you're going to drive yourself, I'm sure you want to be comfortable. If you want to be comfortable, then it's then clear you want to look at the interior and make sure that it will either be as comfortable for you the way it is, or you can do some work to make it comfortable the way you want it. So you don't want to risk you don't want to risk having a car that is not comfortable for you. So you want to look at the interior and be comfortable. That's why normally when you go to inspect cars for people, it doesn't matter whether we think the car is right for this person. As long as the person says, I'm not comfortable with this car, we make sure they don't buy it. We look for the cars that they like and we make sure they buy. For example, the gentleman that bought a Mark II Grand, he came Gayagara this Alteza, and from the history that we have, lawyers buy a lot of Mark II Grands. Lawyers buy a lot of Mark IIs. They actually don't buy Altezas. Why? The Mark IIs kind of give you the Mercedes-Benz feel. They are very, very comfortable. They are very, very comfortable. So that's why lawyers buy those cars. And then they kind of look prestigious. So the moment he sat and I asked him what he does, he told me he's a lawyer. Then I started thinking, but I did not want to give my view. I did not want to give my view before we actually looked at the Altezas, So what happened is, of course, the budget was limited. We had about 8 to 9 million. And I knew that there was a chance we could get an Alteza, but the chance of getting a good Alteza was limited. So, but we drove, and the only Alteza we saw that was available in our price range was the Alteza that has a Yamaha engine. And remember how I've been telling you, don't buy an Alteza that has a Yamaha engine. It's going to disturb you a lot. Exactly. So we found a Yamaha, and then this is the time that I sat him, and we did not really sit. This is the time I talked to him and I told him, you know what? I think this is the time that you started considering a Mark II Musota, because the Mark II Musota would definitely fit in our budget. I actually thought it would be lower. So we went and looked at a Mark II, and I told him to sit in the car because he had sat in the Alteza. Personally, I find the Alteza to be very uncomfortable. The Mark II is very comfortable. So the moment he sat in the Mark II, I think something switched. It was a light bulb moment. He realized that actually the Mark II would be much more comfortable than the Alteza. Not would be, it's much more comfortable than the Alteza. He came and told me, actually, after Chobadoyogera and Chirama, Alteza, Jiringa Benchy and all that. So we changed. That's the moment we changed. And I was happy because now we could actually get a car in that budget. So that very moment, we made a few calls, and someone told us about a Mark II UAR at 8 million. I think it was 8 or 8.5, which was good because then I knew we could bargain and get it at 7.5. But then we went where the car was supposed to be, and it wasn't there. We drove to another place, the Mark II that we bought, and it was really nice. Now, with this car, these are the things that we looked at when we were buying that Mark II. First of all, the interior was really comfortable. Okay, with this gentleman, it was clean, well kept, well cleaned, because this was someone's car. Sigamanti yali mu kibanda. Yali ajozeza bulungi, agitaddemu obuwowo. It had a very nice screen radio. The AC was working. Basically, the car was in with the interior. There was nothing to work on. The boot was also intact. There was even a woofer, because you guys understand the woofer for young people like us. It give you good quality music. So emoroka yali ya muntu ng'agifaako with the interior, because there was nothing to be done. Okujjako Mark IIs have a problem with door panels. The door panels get spoiled. So he had tried to repair, but the guys that did the repair did it poorly. But for me, that was no cause for alarm. It's very hard for you to find a Mark II that hasn't been repaired there in our budget range. So we went and looked at the engine. The engine was intact. It had the Beams 2000 engine. So we looked under the car then, trying to find shocks, bichi. All those things were intact. We had the budget of 9 million. Now, you guys have been hearing me talking for some time that at 9 million right now, it's very hard for you to get a good car. So, the tires, we looked at the tires. The windscreen was okay still. We looked at the tires. He could drive for like 4 to 5 months if he's careful without buying new tires. No police receipts, no multiplex parking. So basically, this car ticked all the boxes of a car that I would buy for myself as Arthur. Now, the issue at that time was the price. I found that this car was a little bit highly priced because the brokers were saying 9.5. I figured the 500,000 was for the brokers. So we said, let's try to go and look at other cars. My God, when we went to look at other cars, the other cars were wrecked. So the only option we had was either to go back to the other Mark II, try to negotiate, or wait for another day and try to look again. And we didn't have another day. So we tried to engage the brokers because the brokers could not allow us to talk. Only later I realized that the broker and the car owner kind of had an arrangement. The broker had lent the car owner some money. Because it's later on, the broker signed the agreement for us, and the guy in the logbook was actually okay with it. The guy in the logbook, what he did was give us a transfer. So the guy in the logbook, we came out without transfer forms. So when we were inspecting that Mark II, I drove it. He did not allow us to take it out of the compound, but I drove it in the compound. And there was literally nothing for you to fix. And for me, the car checked out. I really liked it. There was literally remember the time we bought that Mark II? We bought it 9 million. There was not for him to work. I don't think he has repaired anything. So the other thing you want to check out when you're trying to pre-purchase inspection, make sure the car can actually be transferred. If you have bought cars with me, you'd hear me asking because the transfer these days, the way it's done, the person in the logbook kind of prints out transfer forms for you. You give him your TIN number, he prints out forms for you, nazi signing. Then nakuwa copy your ID. Yusuf Sulaiman, the ball joints can be pressed. You press them like once and then you buy others. You press them like once and then buy others. Because otherwise, if you keep buying ball joints with the Mark II or with all cars, you can go broke. So you press them one time, then buy. Press them so that way you can actually change ball joints at least once a year. That's the best, because that's the best way to actually manage these cars in Uganda. Otherwise, if you try to manage them the European way, you will not be able to afford a car. So you have to make sure the car is transferable, and don't pay the entire amount until the transfer forms have been given to you. Hi Kayongo. Then you have to make sure when you remember, we have not gone to the engine yet. We have not gone to the engine. Make sure there is no police receipts. Now, I've told you guys time and again, you can check the police receipts by downloading the police app. It's called UPF Mobi. I have a video on that app in one of the videos, the very first videos I did on this channel. UPF Mobi. With UPF Mobi, you can check police receipts, you can check criminal records and all that. You haven't changed your ball joints for 4 years now. You haven't changed. But what distances do you drive with your car? Ata njagala kugulayo emmotoka enjagala za Adrian pointed it very clear. For 4 years, Sulaiman, what distance do you drive with your car every day? Because it's a matter of your distance, but if you drive long distances, it's safer for you to actually change ball joints instead of changing them as an emergency. Should not be right for you to change them as an emergency. The network is disturbing you. Sorry, Antonio. So in the road is steady. I think because I'm not moving. 35 Sulaiman. So you drive 35 kilometers from home to town every day, and then 35 kilometers back, like me. How much fuel do you use every day? Tondetera kugula Mark 2 kuba njagala reka tinchagityamu olwa amafuta engeri gyeri 2 liter naye bw'ongamba nti amafuta go gali manageable. How much do you use when you drive to town and then back home? How much money do you use? You drive a Primo Super. But manyi ovuga Mark 2. With Primo, it's okay. Primo, you don't need to change the ball joints. It's a Mark 2s and the TXs, the Mark 2s, Alteza, Mark 2 Grand that have that ball joint issue. Nika akati ne kuba mwabaga nogule moroka ngamuga mwera soka zima mayumba muli mutya leero. It doesn't. You see, another reason to buy an Android phone. Kaninza toinza kunguza iPhone. UPF Mobi works on Android properly, so you can get a friend that has. I'm sure you don't go to buy a car alone. Guys, excuse me,